Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space. Hope you enjoy. Story number 1. What an odd thing to say. Written by producers HFY. Rhea pressed the key chord to play the video yet again. The Oxtans and the humans had butted heads for sons now, but things had finally come to a head when the humans attempted to census of their people in Oxtan territory. Numbers had dropped drastically in the past 12 moons, and the humans suspected mass interment or murder. The Oxtan government's suggestions that perhaps the missing humans had taken their own lives caused riots, and a declaration of war was anticipated. A small-time videographer had managed to speak with the human secretary on his way to the courts minutes before the declaration happened, simply asking him for a comment. This was the video Rhea was watching now. She keyed the cord again. "Sir, is there anything that you would like to say before today's session?" The human rolled his tongue underneath his bottom lip, looking towards the camera with a distinctive stare. He rolled his tongue again, as if weighing the words it was about to produce. "Our military vessels do not have interplanetary thrusters. That is all." The video ended, and the human walked away, just as he had in the previous viewing. Of all the things he could have said, why that? Why something so, weak? But the war was declared, and every human in the parliament had left. Rhea gave up on the video, though only temporarily, in favor of turning off the oven. Her dinner was ready. The war was over, and Rhea wished that she had thought harder along with the rest of the 450 million people who had watched the strange video. Minutes after the human declaration, almost instant considering transmission delays, Oxtan ships had jumped into a distant orbit around Earth, the humans' home world. Earth was unguarded, yet rather than begin to slow burn towards the planet, every ship had erupted into a massive blaze of nuclear fire. No matter the strategy, every single Oxtan ship sent to Earth detonated on arrival, and soon there was not a single ship willing to make the jump. The Oxtan government attempted a hostage negotiation using the human diaspora as leverage, but the humans had an equally large Oxtan population on their worlds, and the situation soon ended in a stalemate. That was a quarter moon ago, and the light from Earth's system had now left human territory hours before the war began. An unusual pattern of activity could be seen around Earth. Minuscule ships, like the mere probes, jumped into low orbit, then jumped again, moving rapidly in a geometric shape around the planet. When apparently finished, they moved into a large shell around the planet, dancing again in their stuttering FTL motion, and moving to a larger shell. This continued in a rapid fashion, more probes being added as the sphere grew larger, until the Oxtan's disastrous arrival, at which point the probes jumped away and did not return. Rhea did find some small pride in the disturbing situation. It was one of her people who worked out the human strategy. When time lapsed from certain angles, the footage showed faint glittering around Earth within the large area that probes had passed through. Human drives used a slightly different technique than most. While a standard jump would simply transport a ship to a desired location, a human jump had the added effect of transporting the destination back, exactly exchanging the two areas. Human drives were bidirectional. Most ships, all non-human ships, made their jumps into orbit, then burned down to the destination on the planet. This was because space was empty. Sure, a few stray particles would overlap with the arriving ship, but a ship would have to run for thousands of years to notice any wear. Because human ships did not have this limitation, they could, without fear, jump directly to a planet, with the only consequence being a small amount of atmosphere exchange in return. In order to prevent confusion and panic, human ships traveling to other systems would jump to orbit and burn, wasting fuel to behave like a standard ship would. Rhea shuddered. All of this was public knowledge. Anyone who worked in transport or FTL physics was well aware of this fact. In fact, it was well known that human transport companies preferred to have an even flow of ships in both directions to avoid wasting energy on a one-way jump. Human military vessels, not carrying non-humans, did not have the interplanetary thrusters, nor indeed any thrusters at all, because they didn't need them. The human probes had left something in orbit. Metal balls, most likely, person-sized pieces of some dense substance, spaced slightly tighter than the diameter of the extant military vessels. When they jumped to Earth, at least one ball would overlap the ship, fusing enough atoms to cause a small nuclear detonation. This was not the problem for the human ships, of course, who would merely leave a few metal balls as they left. Idly checking the news on a computer, Rhea noticed an article explaining that the metal was industrial waste, and that the human military had planned to eject the metal into orbit even without a war. End of story. Story number 2. Wormhikers, written by Lieutenant General Feckery. The jubilation experienced by the majority of the human race upon their first contact with alien life was tempered slightly by the fact that said contact occurred between their first faster-than-light probe and the sight of a delivery truck. Of course, while many people, from many worlds, agree that the human lawyer's argument of, if you didn't want us to accidentally cripple galactic commerce during one of the busiest rush megacycles, a little under 1.6 rush hours, ever recorded, you should have told us our planet was right above the hyperspace interchange so we wouldn't FTL probes across 3 lanes of traffic, did stand up to scrutiny. Ultimately, the local authorities, the Exviron League, ruled that it was the responsibility of the nations of Sol to be cognizant of local traffic ordinances, and ordered all FTL-capable craft or craft that could easily be retrofitted with FTL capabilities, controlled by any of the aforementioned nations, be impounded for 1 teracycle, about 182 years. There was one other minor hiccup with humanity's first contact. The research base they had established on Mars was supplied by 2 Aldrin cyclers, which were deemed easily retrofittable and promptly disabled. This, of course, caused massive backlash from a number of spacefaring races, calling for either evacuation of the stranded humans or the repeal of the impounding order. The Exviron League, like any government caught doing silly and potentially death-inducing things, doubled down, insisting that humans had demonstrated complete disregard for their own safety and the safety of those around them, and could not be trusted, and so on, and so on. Once the Exviron Bureau of Foreign Relations had dug itself out of 1 trillion odd messages informing them of their gaffe, largely in the form of emergency reports of xenophasia, the requests for military aid, accompanied with images or videos of assaulted alien species consuming a tannish paste derived from chickpeas, the League agreed to install a pair of wormhole generators on the 2 home-inhabited planets to facilitate the necessary exchange of goods, without risking another traffic violation. Within half a gigacycle, the humans had torn down both generators. Within 4, had reverse-engineered them, and by the time a half-dozen more could be bothered to pass, were the proud owners of 1/16 of all known artificial wormhole pairs in the galaxy, and, unsatisfied even with that, began work on a gateway project, a method of linking whatever to whatever however we can, so whatever can travel whenever, because why ever the fuck not? While that project showed promise, it was estimated to be decades away. So some enterprising band of humans put out a call to the galaxy, establishing links with the transport hub in L4 orbit of Earth's Sol, and you can travel around the galaxy as close to instantly as customs can be persuaded to tolerate. All the humans asked in exchange would be equal opportunity to visit the partnered systems, and also preferential treatment for any ship charters or passengers booking opportunities that they would certainly need while there. The idea of using wormholes as anything other than a gimmick was laughed out of the first 3 systems it was brought to. So much so, no one even bothered to look at the second point. That is, until someone had the brilliant idea to tell their negotiation partners that arriving in Seoul by FTL was considered not only braggadocious, but quite gaudy as well, and anyone who did so would be viewed as a bit of a twat. This is a technique known to the galaxy over as lying through your teeth, but those with the governmental authority to make such decisions almost universally already looked like a bit of a twat, and thus can't be taking chances when it came to looking like more of one, and probably agreed. Soon, it seemed everywhere that was anywhere was linking up with Earth's Sol 4 transit hub, and so was some nowheres. The nowherest link, which soon became the anywherest, was the Eintona frontier, the last bastion of civilization before the wild Wixtrapper expanse, the vast swath of unclaimed and largely unexplored space named after the man who got there first, and put a beacon in it, Gleefork B Expanse. It should be noted that when Gleefork discovered the words Wixtrapper and Expanse and direct translations of each other, he was completely inconsolable until he was told about the La Brea tar pits. By the time he heard Table Mesa, he was quite convinced his human drinking partner was taking the piss. And so, with the galaxy opening before them, but no method to reach the uncharted, read as interesting, parts under their own power, humans set into the unknown the same way they had since 1978, with nothing but the clothes on their back, a towel, and an unquenchable thirst for gin and tonic, adventure. End of story. I would just quickly like to thank the T5 channel members and patrons, Caspar Arnholtz, Cam Maxwell, Barkey, It's Difficult to Pronounce, Lord Azrakul, and Arcadian.